It started with a letter taped to my front door. In bold red ink, underlined twice, were the words, "Your property violates HOA aesthetic standards. Remove the boat within 72 hours. My boat wasn't just any boat. It was a 22-foot patrol vessel I'd purchased after retiring from the Navy. I named her Liberty Echo, restored her with my own hands, and docked her proudly in my driveway, clean, polished, and covered. She didn't block any sidewalks or infringe on a single rule stated in our community's bylaws. Or so I thought. The letter was unsigned, but I already had a suspect in mind, Karen Winters. She was the president of the HOA and treated the neighborhood like it was her personal gated kingdom. With her ever-clenched jaw and clipboard glued to her side, she policed trash bins, lawn lengths, and even the direction of garden gnomes. Everyone walked on eggshells around her. Everyone except me. Karen had a special vendetta against my boat. I'd caught her once taking pictures of it from her SUV. When I waved, she sped off without acknowledgement. I tried to reason with her at a community meeting, even showing her that no rule prohibited recreational vessels parked in personal driveways. She didn't care. She said it looked military and that it was intimidating. I ignored the letter, of course. 3 days passed. Then, on the fourth morning, I found my boat spray-painted. Black streaks ran across the hull. The name Liberty Echo was crossed out crudely, and the American flag on the stern was defaced. My heart sank. This wasn't a prank. This was deliberate, vicious. I immediately called the police, filed a vandalism report, and checked my doorbell cam footage. The video quality wasn't perfect, but it captured enough: a woman in a wide-brimmed hat, dark sunglasses, and a teal tracksuit. Karen's signature outfit. The officer raised his brows when I handed over the footage. "You said this was a former Navy vessel, right?" "Correct. You might want to let the feds know if that flag is federal property." He didn't finish the sentence. That night, I sent an email with the video, photos, and my report to a few contacts I still had in DC. I didn't expect much, maybe some advice, but what came next was beyond anything I could have imagined. 3 days later, at exactly 7:45 a.m., a matte black SUV pulled into my driveway. No decals, no plates, just tinted windows and tires too clean for a vehicle that size. I stepped outside in my robe, still holding a mug of coffee. 2 men and 1 woman stepped out. They were dressed in black tactical polos and jeans with ID badges clipped to their belts. One of them flashed it quickly. "Mr. Carson, Special Agent Miller. We received your report concerning the vandalism of a former military vessel and possible desecration of federal markings." I blinked. That was fast. He gave a small smirk. Vandalism is one thing. Defacing an American flag on a decommissioned naval craft with identifiable registry markings, that can fall under federal jurisdiction. We just have a few questions. I nodded, letting them into my home. They were courteous, professional, but direct. They asked about the boat's history, Karen's behavior, the footage, and the HOA letter. I played the video from my doorbell cam again. The female agent leaned closer to the screen. "Enhance the timestamp there." 7:02 p.m., Agent Miller confirmed. "And that's the teal tracksuit you mentioned?" "Yep." Karen's signature look. They asked for a printout of the HOA bylaws and left with a copy of the footage. As they stepped outside, the 3 agents stared silently at Liberty Echo. One even saluted her. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. At 11:12 a.m., I heard shouting. I looked out my front window and saw 2 more black SUVs parked beside the HOA office at the corner of the street. That's when Karen came out, still in the teal tracksuit, hair up in a bun, shouting at someone over her shoulder. She was mid-rant when she saw the federal agent stepping toward her. One held out a badge. Karen froze. Her face went white, and then, like something out of a soap opera, she stumbled backward, arms flailing, and fainted right there on the sidewalk. Full body collapse. The clipboard clattered beside her. Neighbors gasped. Phones came out. One guy even shouted, "Yo, Karen just died." She didn't die. An agent checked her pulse and helped her regain consciousness. But when she saw the crowd watching and the federal agent still waiting for her to stand, she begged for someone to call her husband. He never showed. The agents escorted her to the SUV and drove off slowly. And just like that, our HOA dictator was gone. But things were far from over. That night, someone slipped a note under my door. It read, "You shouldn't have involved the feds. Now you've made enemies." After the fainting incident, the neighborhood was electric with gossip. Some neighbors were scared, others were thrilled. A few acted like they'd just watched a live episode of a crime drama. Karen's disappearance left a vacuum in our HOA, and chaos slowly filled it. The vice president, an elderly man named Mr. Dobbins who once ran an antique spoon blog, took over temporarily. He was harmless but clueless. I offered to help bring clarity about the boat incident and HOA rules. He nodded politely, but I could tell he didn't want to get involved. Meanwhile, word spread fast that the FBI had taken Karen away. Theories popped up like weeds. She was running a secret HOA Ponzi scheme, she worked for a foreign agency and thought the boat was spying on us, she faked the fainting to avoid arrest. I mostly kept to myself until the second letter arrived. It was printed in the same bold font as the first, but typed this time. No return address, just this line, "You embarrassed her. You'll regret that." I showed it to the agents when they called for a follow-up. They weren't surprised. "Karen isn't under arrest," Agent Miller explained. "She's cooperating, but we're looking deeper into her activities, especially how she obtained certain information about residents." "What kind of information?" "Financial, legal, even military clearance levels. Stuff a typical HOA doesn't have access to." That was chilling. Over the next few days, I noticed strange things happening. My Wi-Fi would go out exactly at 2:13 a.m. every night. I caught someone walking past my house slowly at 4:30 in the morning, same guy, 3 nights in a row. Security cameras didn't catch much, almost like someone knew where the blind spots were. Then I got an email from an anonymous address. Subject: "You left the Navy, but the Navy didn't leave you." Body: "You've drawn attention from people bigger than Karen. People who don't like sunlight." That night, I checked Liberty Echo again. Nothing new until I opened the hatch. Taped under the bench seat was a small device with blinking red lights. Clearly not something I had installed. I didn't touch it. I backed away and called Agent Miller immediately. The next day, my driveway was swarming with technicians in gloves and suits. The FBI cordoned off the area. Neighbors filmed from their lawns. The device was removed and taken to a secure lab. Later that evening, Miller returned and said, it was a tracker. And not a cheap one. My heart pounded. Who's tracking me? He looked me in the eye. That's what we're going to find out. But I can tell you this, Karen wasn't acting alone. 3 days after the tracker was discovered, my neighborhood felt less like suburbia and more like a surveillance zone. Marked sedans circled the block more frequently. A new black SUV idled by the park entrance most evenings. Liberty Echo was now covered and locked tighter than a vault. Agent Miller called again. We traced the tracker to a shell company, one that used to supply surveillance tech to government contractors. We suspect Karen got access through an old connection. A connection from where? That's the thing. We believe Karen used to work in a civilian intelligence role before her HOA queen phase. The image of her barking about trash can placement suddenly felt much darker. That evening, while clearing out my garage, I found something wedged behind a stack of old moving boxes, a black binder, no label. I assumed it was leftover junk until I opened it. Inside were dozens of printed pages, HOA reports, neighborhood complaints, and detailed dossiers on residents, income, property values, backgrounds, even social media comments. It read like a surveillance file. One section was labeled, High Risk, Former Military. I flipped to my name. There it was, subject, Carson Michael, Navy veteran, monitors neighborhood. Potential asset, potential threat. Beneath that, notes from HOA meetings I'd never even attended. They'd been watching me since I moved in. At the bottom, in red ink, boat contains sensitive markings. Must be removed. My hands went cold. I realized Karen wasn't just annoyed about the boat. She believed it was a symbol, or worse, a liability. I handed the binder to Miller the next morning. He flipped through it slowly, face unreadable. You said this was behind a stack of boxes? Yes. And you never saw it before? Never. He closed the binder, tapped it with 2 fingers. This is going to change things. She wasn't just paranoid. She was running a profiling operation, unauthorized. This could go federal. Federal? I raised an eyebrow. What's that mean? It means agencies we don't name are about to start asking questions. And you, Mr. Carson, may get a visit from people who don't knock twice. Sure enough, 2 days later, someone did knock twice. A sharp rap, then silence. I opened the door slowly. A man in a charcoal suit stood there, sunglasses on despite the evening sun. He held up a leather folder, flipped it open, but there was no badge, just a small silver pin shaped like a falcon. We need to talk about what was really inside that boat, he said calmly. And about why someone like Karen would risk everything just to get close to it. I stared at him. Mr. Carson, he said, this goes deeper than your HOA. Much deeper. If you thought Karen fainting was wild, just wait till you find out who really planted that tracker.